Kill the Child. Written by Speedwagon's Glorious Mane. Read by Yours Prinks. Chapter 7. Put a ring on it. Summary. Eraser chats with Izuku a bit more before going home to propose to his boyfriend. With ring shopping out of the way, they quickly left the busy shopping center for the less crowded streets as they headed back to the train station. Izuku was a little disappointed that their outing was going to be over so soon. Hanging out with Eraserhead was actually kind of fun. Izuku never would have thought he would ever describe hanging out with his former teacher as anything other than nerve-wracking, but he found he was actually enjoying these encounters. At the very least, they were rarely ever boring. And sure, okay, maybe he did kind of enjoy tormenting Eraserhead. Izuku had spent too much time around Netsu. His sadism must have rubbed off on him. This was a lie. Izuku had been a sadistic little shit long before he and Netsu became besties. After all, it was the real motivator behind their friendship in the first place. Oi, don't make me carry you, Eraserhead growled. Izuku looked around in surprise. Oh, the train had stopped, and Eraser was halfway towards the open door. Izuku quickly got out of his seat and followed Eraserhead from the train. The train station was a little cramped, and Eraserhead ended up having to grab his hand again, so they didn't get separated by the lunch rush. It was a good thing too, since one particularly harried-looking man, covered in muddy-colored scales, nearly bowled Izuku over in his rush to grab something to eat and return to the office before his break ended. Both he and Eraser sent glares at the man's retreating back as they continued on their way. The scaled man was probably forgotten when the two stepped out of the station, and Izuku realized they weren't in his neighborhood. Huh? He looked around again. Yep, they definitely weren't at his stop. Where? Eraser had the audacity to roll his eyes once he noticed Izuku's reaction. I'm not taking you home yet. He hesitated before looking away under the guise of checking for traffic. I figured you could use the break from being a kid, just for a little while. That was actually kind of thoughtful. Izuku's knee-jerk reaction was to say something sarcastic about Eraserhead actually being nice for once, but for once, he was speechless. Eraser very kindly pretended not to notice. They ended up parked on a bench under a tree near a food truck, each of them holding a steaming styrofoam container of takoyaki. The smell of the takoyaki on the breeze took him back to the early mornings in Osaka, after a night of bar hopping with his fellow undergrads, while he was studying to get his MD. In the early hours of the morning, they stuffed themselves with enough takoyaki to feed a small army, and stumbled back to their dormitories to try and get a few hours of sleep before it was time to go back on rotation at the hospital. He smiled at the memory as he dug in. The takoyaki was a little greasier than he would have liked, but they each had the perfect octopus to dough ratio, which balanced the scales. Izuku was torn between wolfing everything down and savoring every last bite of the delicious street food. Eraser finished quickly and set about fiddling with the now empty container while he waited for Izuku to finish his own. Izuku, however, had other plans. He gently nudged Eraser towards the food truck. You should get seconds. You're too skinny. Eraser sent up a sardonic look. You're one to talk. If I'm getting seconds, then you're having some too. So you can grow big and strong like me. Izuku glared daggers at Eraser, convinced that he somehow knew he had inherited his mother's height, or lack thereof. No, Izuku was not insecure about his height, fuck you. The 6-inch platform boobs that were part of Izuku's villain costume can burn in fashion hell where they belong, right next to Best Genius name-branded underwear line. Okay, maybe that's not a lie. Maybe Izuku did miss his big stomping boots, but Izuku would never admit it. Fucking respect your elders, zygote. Izuku enunciated each word clearly in English, because there were children around, and Izuku was not going to be a bad influence on poor innocent children. Eraserhead, on the other hand, was a grown man, sort of, and should know better than to let Izuku get him involved in any shenanigans. Eraser scoffed, but got up to get himself seconds. If Izuku ended up stealing one or two, then what did you expect? He used to be the world's most feared villain. He wasn't scared to commit grand theft takoyaki under the nose of a hero. What was Eraser gonna do? Arrest him? Even though he had the lower half of his face hidden by his capture scarf, Izuku could still see Eraser's smile as he stuffed his cheeks with the stolen food. Izuku scowled as he chewed, just to be contrarian. They sat there on the park bench for a while, just enjoying the day. The sun had come out and was shining down, bathing them both in warm golden light. Izuku even ended up needing to unzip the ridiculous coat his mother had put him in earlier that morning. Both he and Eraser watched as a couple of birds fought over some abandoned takoyaki near the bins, before two big crows touched down and hogged the tray to themselves. It was nice. We should hang out more often. Ugh. Eraser made an exaggerated noise of disgust, which only made Izuku double down.
Come on! If I can't be normal around just one person, I'll actually go insane!
I'm pretty sure that ship's already sailed. Eraserhead muttered as they packed up their little styrofoam containers to throw in the bin. Izuku pretended to be hurt by his words.
Just because you're right doesn't mean you should say it. Come on, I can give you info!
Eraserhead crossed his arms. What sort of info? Izuku put on a coy smile.
You have a weak secondary telekinesis quirk that you can control with practice.
Eraserhead looked appropriately gobsmacked. What? Telling people things they'd assumed all of their life as fact were actually not true was something that never got old.
Yeah, since the erasure aspect is so prominent, I bet you never really tried to harness the part of your quirk that allows your hair to stay out of your eyes. You also subconsciously use it on your capture weapon.
Eraserhead put his hand up. Wait, really? Izuku nodded.
Your capture weapon is actually the thing that started this whole thing. So, when I was at UA, you took this kid under your wing and trained him so he had a better chance at getting the hero course. And you thought it would be a good idea to teach you to use your capture weapon. Except that no matter how much he practiced, he couldn't get it to move like you do. Of course, this was fixed by the support department, making a few tweaks to the original design. They chose a lighter alloy that doesn't compromise on strength and durability, and fitted it out with some cool snaps woven into several different points, so it gripped things better. But the point is, you have minor telekinesis.
Eraserhead was staring at his hands, looking like he didn't know which way was up. But Izuku was on a tangent, and wouldn't let little things like other people's existential crisis stop him.
It's because of this that I was ambushed by one of my dear friends, and asked if you were secretly my uncle, because my mom's quirk is the attraction of small objects, and since your telekinesis only works on light objects, they look pretty similar, except my mom's quirk isn't actually telekinesis, but a form of gravity manipulation that allows her to pull small objects towards her. Of course, with training, her quirk could be so powerful. She could bring down buildings, or make objects orbit her to gain speed before releasing them like bullets. If she studied the human body, she could potentially use her quirk to seriously maim or even kill someone. That's what I told this friend, but he simply wasn't convinced. This is the same person who asked me whether I am All Might's secret love child and even your secret love child on 2 separate occasions though. Obviously, both theories are flawed since A, both you and All Might would never be with a woman romantically, and B, neither All Might nor my mother are pedophiles. Like, can you imagine? That's so gross.
Izuku was cut off when a hand was placed over his mouth. Izuku was startled out of his thoughts, and upon realizing there was a hand over his mouth, his body reacted, like that of a seasoned pro who had been kidnapped a few too many times. Izuku bit down. Hard. Eraser swore loudly as he yanked his hand back and cradled it to his chest while giving Izuku a dirty look.
I'm so sorry!
Izuku cried. 2 mothers were glaring at the two, one looking 2 seconds away from calling the cops on Eraser, while the other one was trying to shoo their kids away from them. Eraserhead just grunted as he grabbed a handful of capture whips and pressed against the bite. A sizable red stain began to bleed through the off-white material. Izuku had really chomped down hard, and Eraser's hand was bleeding quite a bit. Izuku reached back into his backpack for the first aid kit he had hidden inside.
I'm so sorry. Here, let me fix that up.
Izuku offered. Eraser opened his mouth to protest, but seemed to think better of it at the last second. Instead, he let out a long, suffering sigh and silently offered up his hand. Izuku pulled the now bloody capture weapon away from the bite. Pulling out a small bottle of saline solution, Izuku rinsed out the wound, before covering it with some fresh gauze and applying pressure to try to stop the bleeding.
I really am sorry. I know I can't die, but that doesn't mean I can't be kidnapped and, well...
Izuku trailed off.
Be experimented on, or sold by human traffickers, or have a certain sick bird mask-wearing Yakuza suck him dry of blood again and again, in the hopes that will let him return the world back to a pre-quirk state.
Izuku was uniquely qualified in saying there were many things worse than death out in the world that he would very much like to avoid.
I hope it doesn't scar.
Eraser had closed his eyes and let out a quiet hiss as Izuku wrapped his hand with a bandage. It's okay, kid. You have no idea how many times I've actually flipped out on someone for just touching me. Next time, I'll just shake you until I can get your attention. Izuku was glad Eraser didn't seem too pissed off by the bite. That still didn't stop him from messing with Eraser a little bit more. He smiled coyly.
Didn't your parenting classes teach you not to shake the baby?
Eraserhead's eyes shot wide open. Parenting classes? Izuku sent him an impish grin. Izuku wondered if this was how Nizu felt all the time, knowing that people know you know things you shouldn't, but do anyways. Eraserhead was looking panicked. I'm not ready to be a father. If it weren't for Asashi, I would have accidentally killed myself years ago. I can't look after a kid. Izuku gently placed his hand on the finished neat bandages.
Don't worry, you won't have to worry about that for a few more years yet.
Eraserhead still looked kind of pale though, so Izuku changed the subject as he packed his supplies back away.
You'd probably be safer buying a Nerf gun or something and just shooting me when I get carried away.
Eraserhead pressed his lips together, like he was trying to repress a smile. Would one of those spray bottles filled with water work? Izuku paused in what he was doing to look him dead in the eye.
I will leave you in a ditch if you spray me with a water bottle like a misbehaving cat.
Eraser laughed nervously, looking like he was considering the odds of who would win if it came down to a fight between the two of them, and realizing that his victory wasn't a certainty. Now that they were alone, Izuku could actually get down to business.
So, how's the family?
Eraser looked like he was glad for the subject change. They're great. Rei is looking into changing her family name. She doesn't want to go back to being a Hamura. Yeah, Rei may have mentioned how she didn't want to be reminded of the family that sold her to the highest bidder once or twice. Emmy says she's looking to take a new name entirely. I told her that she should suggest that Rei wait until she can take Fukukato as her family name. Izuku chuckled.
What did she say?
Eraser did its best turtle impression, retracting his face into his capture weapon. Izuku pictured Eraser's neck disappearing back into his body like that one girl from Shiketsu, and shook his head to try to get rid of that cursed image.
Come on, it can't be that bad.
Eraser gave a gusty sigh. Bold words from someone I once caught mashing his crush's name with his own to create a ship name. A red flush spread from the top of Eraser's cheeks up to his ears and disappeared below his capture weapon. Izuku cackled, sounding a little deranged as he folded like a wet paper towel to bang his knee with his fist. He wiped his eyes to catch the tears trying to escape.
Ah, young love. Isn't it just wonderful?
Eraser growled. Shut up, old man. Izuku perked up at the affectionate nickname, Insult. Eraser continued. The kids seem to be settling in well too, and they're all in therapy. Though I heard Toya was a little hesitant at first. I went to visit them a few days ago. It's like looking at a totally different family. He fiddled with the bloody end of his scarf. They're not all the way there yet, but in just a few days, they were already so much happier. Izuku smiled softly. He wished he could have seen them, but he had known for a while that simply would not be possible. It was probably better anyways. So, we got the family out. Dummy, Dumb, and Dumber arrested that quirk specialist you mentioned, and are looking for Tenko, which I'm not even going to ask how to convince the goddamned mighty agency to help out with that. I do not want to know, and we're going to destroy your school district. Any other diabolical plans I should know about? Izuku stroked his chin as he mentally scrolled through his seemingly ever-expanding bucket list. He'd started mentally referring to it as that since list of things I need to do to leave the world a better place once Eraser finally kills me was a little too much of a mouthful, even for him.
Well, I'd like to stop a few serial killers and mass murders before they, start murdering people. Would you be able to get me in touch with some support techies?
Eraser raised his eyebrows. Oh, I kind of figured you could find one yourself easily. Izuku crossed his arms.
My favorite support techie is busy right now learning how to write her name in kanji and tie her shoelaces.
Eraser was visibly thrown for a few seconds, blinking rapidly a couple times, before managing to recover. Okay, what do you need? Izuku unzipped his backpack and reached inside for a notebook and a pen. He ended up finding his hero signature notebook and a few snacks in his backpack. His mom had made sure he was well prepared for his outing. He flipped to a clean page before beginning to sketch something out. He'd been thinking about this for a while now.
I need one of these.
Based on the Shihasuke's guns, it was a small handgun that used compressed air to shoot small needle-tipped canisters of Izuku's chosen toxin into the target. It would be small and was designed to minimize the recoil, so someone, say Izuku's height and weight, could have used it without hurting themselves. What are you gonna put in the canisters? Eraser asked as he inspected the diagram. Izuku bit his lip.
That's still a bit of work in progress. Unfortunately, I simply don't have access to a lot of resources, so it depends on what I can get my hands on. I prefer some sort of tranquilizer or a temporary paralytic, but some of the targets I have in mind, well, something a little more lethal would also do the job.
Eraser pinched the bridge of his nose. I'm going to pretend I did not just hear you say that. He glared at Izuku. I can get you this, but you absolutely cannot use it to murder people. Izuku pouted.
Not even if some of them deserve it?
Eraser glared harder. Yes, even if they deserve it. And you can only use it with my supervision. Izuku rolled his eyes.
Okay, Dad, whatever you say.
It would probably be for the best anyways if Eraser was the one to look after it. Izuku wasn't sure how he'd explain a functional gun if his mom found it while cleaning his room. Izuku felt like he needed to tell Eraser something important related to the gun, but he couldn't remember what it was. After a few seconds of racking his brain, he gave up. Whatever. Surely it couldn't be that important if he forgot. By the time they finished hashing out the details, it was getting on in the day, and Eraser needed to run a few errands. He dropped Izuku off back at his place with a ruffle of his hair and a promise to talk soon. Izuku was feeling much more refreshed after his outing, and didn't even scowl, when his mom bundled him up in a hug. Before he even had a chance to step inside, all he did was hug her back tightly. A crow perched in a nearby tree and cooed loudly at the scene, making Izuku turn to look. He stared at it for 3 whole seconds before cursing under his breath. God damn it. He knew he forgot to tell Eraser something important. Hey, babe! Hisashi called as he stepped through the front door. He quickly shed his jacket and boots before he ventured further into the apartment, head turning this way and that as he looked around for any sign of Shota. Shota had to hold back a smile when Hisashi audibly gasped at the scene waiting for him in their kitchen. Shota had gone all out, stopping by the grocery store on the way home after he dropped the brat off and grabbing what he needed, before quickly making his way home to prepare for Hisashi's arrival. The entire kitchen was softly lit by candlelight, 36 candles in total, some tea lights and some small pillar candles, all non-scented because Hisashi has allergies. And Shota had even dug out an old fancy tablecloth from the linen closet to throw over their shitty laminated dinner table. The whole room smelled of the homemade fried chicken and fries being kept warm in the oven, and a packet of store-bought tiramisu-flavored daifuku sat in the freezer for later. Shota had gone all out in making sure their dinner would be full of Hisashi's favorites. Everything was perfect. This proposal would be one they would both remember, for better or for worse. Except, as soon as he heard the keys in the door, Shota's mouth had dried up in an instant, and his heart had decided that it'd be fun to throw itself against his sternum with every contraction. Hisashi slowly took everything in with wide eyes before turning to Shota, his face looking almost flushed in the dim light. Shota mostly avoided eye contact with people, but at that moment, he was having a hard time tearing his eyes away from Hisashi's. Fuck, this man was beautiful. Just imagining being able to call him husband made him feel a bit dizzy. Sho? What's going on? Hisashi asked, slowly. Shota opened his mouth to reply, but his tongue felt like it was too heavy in his mouth, too clumsy to form proper words. He pushed on anyway. He cleared his throat. Dinner tonight? He internally cringed. God, Shota was a mess. He was just asking his wonderful and lovely and amazing boyfriend way out of his league to marry him. What could go wrong? He could reject you. He could say no. He could laugh in your face and... No! Even the infuriating, quasi-immortal toddler old man said that Hisashi loved him. And they were married in the future, so Hisashi must have said yes at some point. He needed to pull himself together. It would be fine. He just had to ask when the time was right. He pulled a chair out for Hisashi, gesturing for him to sit down. Hisashi watched his every move as he gingerly sat down on the edge of the chair. Shota pushed it in and got to work on serving everything up. What happened to your hand, babe? Hisashi asked. Shota's throat mercifully loosened enough for him to answer the question. The kid bit me. It's nothing. He poured 2 glasses of water and sat them both down on the table. Hisashi grabbed his wrist before he could head back to the kitchen and gently inspected his bandaged hand. Aw, babe. He pouted up at Shota. Do you want me to kiss it better? Shota's face ignited with a cherry red blush as his stutter returned with a vengeance. God, why did Hisashi have to make this so hard? Food. He cried out desperately before hightailing back to the kitchen. He took a second to try to collect himself before grabbing the 2 plates. Once he had set them both down at the table, he sat down across from Hisashi. This looks great, Sho. Hisashi told him enthusiastically, smile slightly crooked, the way that made butterflies take flight in Shota's stomach. Shota tried to return the gesture, but it came out as more of a grimace. He quickly put a piece of fried chicken in his mouth to try to make the situation less awkward. The chicken was juicy and tender, cooked to perfection because Hisashi deserved the best. Shota could barely taste it as he chewed before swallowing. His throat was dry, so when he swallowed, the chicken got caught in his throat. He quickly took a sip of his water to help wash it down. Hisashi also digged in, making sure to voice his appreciation, but Shota couldn't find the words to respond as he usually would, simply remaining silent. Hisashi's smile became more strained with every remark he made that was met with silence. So... It threw Shota off to hear his boyfriend sound so unsure of himself. Before he could think much of it, though, Hisashi continued. You were hanging out with the little listener today, right? How is he? Oh no. Shota's nervousness had made Hisashi nervous, and had reverted back to his present mic persona. Shit, this wasn't the plan. We, got lunch. He managed to get out. His whole body was suddenly achingly aware of the ring box tucked into the small of his back. Hisashi nodded hesitantly, looking away from Shota and using his chopsticks to push a bit of fried chicken around his plate. Oh, what'd you get? Fuck, Shota couldn't do this. I can't do this. What? Hisashi was watching him with wide, suspiciously glassy eyes. What? Shota, what? Then, Shota dropped to one knee, hard enough for it to crack loudly against the floor, but the adrenaline coursing through his system didn't allow him to feel any pain. Hisashi, I love you so much, Hisashi, and... His throat was trying to close up, but Shota had to say this. I want to be with you for the rest of my life. I want you to be my husband. Hisashi opened his mouth, throat flexing in that way that meant his quirk was engaged, and Shota reflexively erased it, before Hisashi could accidentally shatter all the glass in a 15-meter radius with a scream. It made something in Shota's chest squirm happily, knowing that he was able to do so without a thought because of all of the years that they spent together. Even without his quirk, Hisashi was still loud. Yes! Yes, God! He dropped to his knees in front of Shota and pulled him against his chest. I was so worried you were about to break up with me. Shota sputtered, the sudden shift making it easy for him to talk. What? You thought I made your favorite meal and set all of these candles just to break up with you? Well, I don't know. You were acting weird and it made me nervous, but oh my god, you're gonna be my husband? I'm gonna be a husband? Hisashi blinked, letting his tears fall down his face even as he grinned ear to ear. Then, he was suddenly kissing Shota, leaving small kisses all over his face. God, I love you so much. He pulled back to rest their foreheads against each other. My lovable dork of a husband. Shota's whole face felt too hot, and his cheeks hurt from how widely he was smiling. Husband. He repeated the word breathily, like he hadn't been whispering the word under his breath the entire time he had been preparing their dinner. God, I can't wait to introduce you to everyone as my husband. Hisashi mirrored his grin. Sorry guys, but I have to leave early tonight. My husband is waiting for me at home. Oh god, can you imagine? Shota's whole body sagged against Hisashi. I am so glad that you said yes. I was nearly pulling my hair out all day, he admitted. Hisashi pulled away as he cooed. Aw, baby, that's so sweet. I love you so much, you know? Shota reached out to grab one of Hisashi's hands. He laced their fingers together before giving him a gentle squeeze. Hisashi squeezed back. I can't wait to put a ring on it. He traced his thumb over Shota's ring finger, making him tense. Oh shit, Shota whispered. He had gone through all the trouble of going ring shopping just to forget about them in the heat of the moment. He couldn't believe it. He quickly pulled his hand from Hisashi's to reach for the rings. When he pulled them from their hiding place, he all but threw them at Hisashi. Hisashi giggled, smiling at Shota with so much love and no small amount of amusement. You bought, he started before cutting himself off with a bark of laughter. A ring pop? Oh, babe. He pulled Shota in for another kiss, hot and heavy. Shota allowed himself to enjoy the kiss for a few seconds, before pulling away. Yeah, but I also got this. He once again grabbed the small velvet-lined box and opened it, letting Hisashi see inside. In the end, he bought Hisashi the filigree ring. At the base of the ring, there was a small stretch of solid band, and on the inside of that band, Shota had gotten the date of the first real date they went on engraved. It was also the date of their first kiss. When Hisashi noticed that small detail, he teared up. Oh god, Shota? I love it. I love you so much. Shota pulled Hisashi into his arms as his boyfriend, fiancé, cried happy tears. As he held the man he loved and wanted to spend the rest of his life with close, Shota couldn't help but feel he was the luckiest man on earth. Eraserhead put his hand up. Eraserhead put his hand up.
Obviously, both theories are flawed since A, both you and All Might would never be the
Oh my god, All Might gay, real. Either All Might gay or All Might ace as fuck. Or I guess Arrow.
Didn't your parenting classes teach you not to shake the baby?
Then, Shota dropped to one knee hard enough for it to crack against the floor. Husband. He repeated the word breathily, like he hadn't been whispering the word under his breath the entire time he'd been preparing the so many feelings. Oh my god, I need to go lie down. I really hope that you enjoyed this chapter. I would absolutely recommend going to the original 803 link, linked in the description, and leaving the author some love, some kudos, some comments, because this is such a lovely chapter. I'm so happy. Oh my god. Of course, thank you so much for listening to this podfic. I will see you when I do. Toodaloo!